This demonstration is on entering a non-point source into a TEISS project. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to enter the residential natural gas heating source that we discussed in the slides. And I'm going to pretend that this source is on the White Mountain Apache tribe. And I want to remind you that these data are totally fake, and these is just for demonstration purposes only. So to enter the source, we have to open Input View first. So we click on the input icon, and that opens the linear data entry screen, also known as Input View. And so we're going to be entering a non-point source. So what we have to do is click on the non-point sources bar right here, and that opens up the area that we can enter our non-point source into. So the first thing we want to do is enter the location. So we click on non-point locations, and we click on Add. So that brings up this screen where we can add what location that this non-point source is located in. So the first thing we have to do is select the state, and that's Arizona. And then we have to select the tribe, so we click on the little radio button next to tribe. And we click on these three dots to find the tribe. And this lists all the tribes in Arizona. And we're going to select White Mountain Apache. And then we have to click on OK to save this data. If we click on this X button here, the data are not saved, so be very wary of that. Click on the OK button to save your data. So now we can see the linear data entry screen, and we can see that we entered the White Mountain Apache tribe as our location. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to enter the process, and for non-point sources, a process is pretty much the source. So we're going to go ahead and click on non-point processes, and we're going to click on the Add button. And notice that the breadcrumb panel up here is starting to build. So any process we add right from here is going to go into the White Mountain Apache tribe. So we'll click on Add. You'll see the data entry screen come up, and you want to fill in as much data as you can on these screens. And remember that the green fields are mandatory fields. And this is the process description field that is especially important for you to enter data into. So we'll enter residential natural gas heating into the process description. And then we're going to find our source classification code, our SCC. We're going to click on this three dots button here to open up the search for the SCC. And you'll see on my screen I've got my DPI, which is my text size on my computer, set to medium. And so what happens is the buttons scroll off the side. And for that, we can't see the search button anymore. But if you enter a text in here and press enter on your keyboard, it's like pressing the search button. That looks like the binoculars. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to type in natural gas. And here you would click on the binoculars button, but I'm just going to click enter. And that shows all of the SCCs that have something to do with natural gas. And so I know that this SCC is a stationary source fuel combustion SCC. And I see you've got two choices for natural gas residential. If I scroll over, you can see the complete description in SCC 10. So I'm going to move this over a little bit so I can see the whole thing. And that pushed it out, so I have to go back up. So now I can see we've got residential natural gas total, all combustor types, and we've got a residential natural gas furnaces. And the furnaces applies mostly to what I'm talking about. So we'll see if there's anything else we need to enter on this screen, and we'll scroll down, and I don't see any more green mandatory fields. So we'll leave the rest of this blank, but I encourage you to fill in as much information as you can, because it's very useful to have more data. But for demonstration purposes and to keep this video relatively short, I'm going to click OK to save my data. The next thing we're going to enter is the non-point reporting period, and I'm going to click non-point reporting period, and then I'm going to click the Add button. In this screen, you'll notice that the reporting period type code of annual is pre-populated by TEISS, so we don't need to fill that in. And the throughput information is mandatory data as well. You'll see the green fields there. However, since we are using a TEISS calculator to estimate the emissions, that throughput data is going to be filled in by the TEISS calculator, so we don't need to fill that in. What I am going to fill in is some data entry notes, because this is the throughput and I want to know where that throughput came from. So I'm going to type up some comments here. And it's really important to put in as much information as you can in these comment boxes, because it really helps the people that review your TEISS project to know what you did. So I put in that according to the general manager of the Clean Natural Gas Company, 900,000 cubic feet of natural gas was sold to reservation households in 2013. The heating value of the natural gas is 980 BTUs per cubic feet, and the company did not know the sulfur content of natural gas. And then I'm going to see, I want to know who I collected this data from. And since I haven't put anything into my TEISS project in terms of who the data is from, this is not populating. So I need to add that person by clicking on these three dots, and then click Add, and then click OK, and click OK here. And now I can add this person by clicking that selection in the drop-down. And again, put as much data as you can here. And then I'm going to be the data collected by. I collected that data, but I have not entered that person into my list. So I'm going to click on these three dots and add myself to the list. Click OK, and click OK again. And I'm going to select myself here. And most importantly, I just typed out this whole thing. Make sure you click OK here to save your data. So I'll click OK, and that data will be saved. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the calculator to estimate those emissions. And to do that, all we have to do is click on this Estimate button here. And that's going to launch the process of finding the calculator and importing those emissions into my TEISS project. So this screen pops up that's empty. So what we want to do is we want to click on the Add and Execute button at the top. And this is going to allow us to search for the calculators. So right here it lists the total number of calculators, and it shows there's a total of 205 calculators. So we don't want to search through all those. Let's enter natural gas and see if we can find the calculator we're looking for. And then I'll click on the binoculars. And this natural gas combustion calculator is the one we want. So we'll click on that, and we'll click the OK button. So the calculator comes up. The screen behind it has the information about the calculator, and if we scroll down, we can see the links. We're going to enter this data into the TEISS calculator. So the combustor type is going to be residential furnaces, because we're doing residential emissions. And remember to check your units here, because notice that these units are in million cubic feet. MM stands for million, and the number that we got from the company was 900,000 cubic feet. So we're going to have to divide 900,000 by a million to get the value in million cubic feet. So that number becomes 0.9 million cubic feet. And the heating value of natural gas that the company gave us was 980 BTUs per cubic feet, so we don't have to do any conversions there. And they did not know the sulfur content, so we're going to leave that sulfur content unknown checked. And we don't have any emission controls for residential furnaces. So we'll click the calculate button because we've completed our data entry. And what that does is brings up all of the pollutants and their emissions that are associated with this particular source. And now we have to click on the close button to continue the importing of that data into my TEISS project. So the next screen that comes up is the emission import options screen. And in this screen, you can select which pollutants you want to import into your TEISS project. And what I would recommend doing is leaving them all selected to start with, because you can always go into your TEISS project and remove them if you don't want them again. So normally what I would do is click on the import button. However, you'll see that I have that same problem because my text size is too big for TEISS, so that is not there. And if you happen to have this happen to you, you can do two things. You can either fix your text size in your computer settings, or you can click the Alt-I on your keyboard, and that is a keyboard shortcut for importing data. So if I press Alt-I on my keyboard, that's going to import that data. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And now you can see in the linear data entry view that those emissions were imported into my TEISS project. And we can also go back into Nonpoint reporting period and click on the edit button. And we can see that the throughput also got imported into the TEISS project. And also this was filled in by TEISS that a calculator was used to get those emissions.